the training of life. And the training of life is what makes you a better actor for when that job happens. And if you're working like 360 days of the year, you're in a bubble. You're like in a world that is not realistic, and you are not learning and growing and deepening your connection to the human experience. So you're only as good of an actor as you are a good human being.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Holy moly, what a lightness of being Cindy is. She is phenomenal. Cindy radiates warmth, empathy, and inspiration. She is uplifting and super reflective. All the tools for a brilliant chat. We cover so many things in this one. One of the many things I love about this chat is how Cindy talks about expansion and contraction, a life skill she gives that is awesome and powerful. I had a great time chatting with Cindy, and I think you will too. Cindy Busby is an actor who's been a prominent presence in Hollywood for over 2 decades, making her mark in both film and television. The television mainstay is best known for her series regular role as Ashley Stanton on Heartland, one of the most successful Canadian television shows ever produced. Syndicated in over 81 countries and a fan favourite on Netflix, the series has solidified her as a beloved actress among audiences worldwide. She's now making the jump to When Hope Calls on Great American as a series regular Nora Anderson. It's in its 2nd season. The series is now streaming on Pureflix and Great American Family. Over the years, Cindy's dedication and talent have earned her over 20 lead roles, including standout performances in Unleashing Mr. Darcy, which premiered to over 3 million viewers and broke the network's social media record. She also starred in Royal Hearts, filmed in Romania, alongside James Brolin. Cindy has worked with some of Hollywood's biggest names, making a natural fit in high-profile projects. Her impressive resume includes The Big Year with Steve Martin, A Life Interrupted with Lea Thompson, Honey Girls with Ashanti, Picture This with Ashley Tisdale, and The Wrong Stepdaughter with Sydney Sweeney. Beyond film, Cindy's television roles have solidified her as a household name. She's had reoccurring roles on Hallmark's first ever series, Cedar Cove, alongside Andie MacDowell, and ABC's Somewhere Between. A special opportunity came when she showcased her comedic talents as a series regular in Date My Dad, starring Barry Watson and Raquel Welch. She's also made memorable guest appearances on fan-favourite shows such as Supernatural, Psych, The LA Complex, and The Vampire Diaries. As you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about integrity and alignment, When Hope Calls, mystical moments, trusting her gut, the in-between moments between jobs, her experience with Heartland, expansion and contraction, people-pleasing, her YouTube channel, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. Maybe we'll continue from our conversation before that you've never been to Melbourne. I'd love to know why. Breaks my heart.
So it breaks my heart because there's so many places in Australia I wish I could have been. But you know what? I still have so much to see, and I'm probably going to go back because my cousin lives on the Gold Coast.
Oh.
And I shot a movie in Brisbane, aka Bris Vegas, and Brizzy. And I went to Perth and Adelaide with a friend of mine years ago because she was doing a convention, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to be my +1?" And I was like, Yeah, obviously. So that's how I went there. And then I've been to Sydney, etc. So yeah,
You
Melbourne. I'm saving the best for last,
Thank
as
you.
they
That was
say.
a great answer. You ended on Sydney, which is quite disappointing for many people. Gold Coast is amazing. I go there
It's
all the
amazing.
time. That's
Yeah.
like the best holiday. Did you manage to have a bit of a holiday there, or was it more through filming of?
No, I shot there for a month and then I spent, I think it was like 10 days. And then I went to
Oh,
Bali. As a real Australian
yep.
does, you go to Bali
I've
after.
knighted you as an official Australian.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, the sad thing is, I've only gone to Bali for the first time last year. I'd never gone
No
before. So
kidding.
you're probably more Australian than me.
Listen, and I did it right at for New Year's 2020, like into 2020. So it was quite the festivity.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, no, I mean, thank you. I guess I'm more Australian than you. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
Good. And have you noticed any like main differences between Canada/America? Because I know you're from Canada to Australia. Anything that stands out or springs to mind?
Uh,
I know I put you on the spot. It's hard.
I would say Australia definitely reminds me more of Canada um, than America. But it's its own thing, you know. I think the thing I love about Australia is the people are just so beautiful and natural and very like outdoorsy and the food is so good and healthy and like of course there's always like trash everywhere but
Yeah.
it's like there's something about it that's just really like what I love about places which is beautiful, great people and great food and that's what I love.
You can be on our tour Australia, our tourism Australia. You've sold it really well. And did you ever think? I just heard about this recently. I think you had to do a project at college where you had to interview someone in the industry. Did you ever think that, through that experience, it ultimately led to Australia? Did you ever think, when you're doing that you would be in Australia filming?
No. I mean, yes, but no.
Yeah,
I've always had like a sense of naiveness when it comes to where I was headed in my life, like in my career, especially. Like I always knew what I was going to do, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. And yeah, I guess that's the beauty, the magic of life is that you can know so deeply what you're going to do and not know how it's going to happen. And that's kind of the best part, but that's also the scariest
I
part.
was just about to say, like, I've got probably close to 10 scripts. I know they're going to get made, but it's the how that drives me nuts. And I'm sure we'll talk about your journey because it's very interesting where, you get a role and you're like, what's the next one? Because you don't know what's going to happen next. But you know what's going to
Yeah.
happen eventually, but it's the how that drives me nuts. And I know it's a bit above our pay grade. What are your thoughts on that?
Of the how part.
Yeah, the how, like how are we going to get there? You know it's going to happen, but the how am I going to, intertwine? Like when you were first starting out, for example, you got an MTV show called Undressed and you got that show. Then I don't think you worked for a few years, which is very normal. So what were you
Yeah.
thinking, like, for example, in that moment?
Well, because that happened for me in a way that is very uncharacteristic. Like my first professional audition ever, I booked it, and like
Crazy.
that does not happen. So that is certainly not the average thing. And so I think I kind of, for the first bit, had an unrealistic expectation of it being like, well, I guess I'm gonna audition and then I just book the role. That's how it works.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not how it works. And but I also lost that feeling quite quickly just because I was just trying to I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I went to theater school for 3 years. I did all the theater plays in elementary school and high school, but when it came to like movies and television, I didn't know anything about it other than I just love stories. I love watching movies. I love watching TV. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't, the how has certainly had its moments of like frustration, overwhelmingness, feeling not good enough, thinking like, why are you doing this to yourself? Is it worth it? But then it's like this bizarre thing where you just keep putting yourself through it because you can't imagine doing anything else with your life.
Yes. Yeah, perfectly said. But
You know?
it's like kind of like that drug as well. I used to be an accountant, and now I'm doing this and podcast. Sorry, this and screenwriting. And
Right.
those moments where you're like, oh, it's never going to happen. When's it going to happen? And then when it does happen, you're like, oh, I can never go back. Like it excites you, lifts you up, it like lights your soul on fire. So there's like no going back.
Yeah, and that is the inspiration and the feeling of like your entire being like exploding and
Yes.
becoming like infinite in that moment of joy is like you said, it does feel like an addiction, but like not in a toxic way, in the most inspired, aligned possible way that you're like, oh, this is it. It's not contracted, it's expansive, and so that's how you know it's correct.
Oh, okay. You have said so many great words and you actually live and breathe it. I want to build up to that because of the alignment. That's my favorite
Yeah.
word as well. And but I want to build up to because I don't think I explained it properly. When you were first
Right.
doing, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. I might be getting the timeline wrong. But you
Yeah.
were at the professional theatre program at Dawson College in Montreal. Is that when
Yeah.
you were given the task to interview someone and you handed your resume? I'd love to hear the story because I think
Yeah.
that's, as you said, you got your first thing you ever auditioned for, you got a role, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I had only done theater up until this point. It was my second year in theater school as a 3-year program, and one of the things we had to do was go interview someone in the industry, whoever, actor, director, producer, whatever. And one of the things that my teacher had mentioned was, if you try to meet up with this person and they, flake on you or they don't show up or they cancel, just talk about that. And what did that feel like? And what was that experience? And because I felt uncomfortable chasing after someone to interview and be like, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation because I knew nothing about it. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do what my teacher just said, which is pretend I interviewed someone and
That's
then
so
just
good.
write about that,
Yep.
which was like my scheming weird brain. And so I I found an agent in Montreal and was like, I'm just going to show up, bring my headshot and resume, and tell them like, hey, I'm Cindy Busby, and I'm looking for an agent or whatever. And so I did that. I walked up, I went to the front counter, and there was 2 offices. And I just remember when I showed up, I was like all dressed up and like cute, and I gave them my headshot and resume, and they were like, "Oh, we're not looking for anyone right now, but thank you for dropping this by, and we'll hand it over to the agent and see what happens." I was like, "Okay, great, thank you so much, goodbye."
Good. Oh, that's great.
And then they called me literally, I think it was like 2 days later. I called on a payphone, and
Oh, yeah.
they yeah, because I'm old, and
You are not. That's
I called on a payphone, and they were like, "Yeah, we got an audition for you. Could you go to this location at this time, whatever?" Did the audition, got a call back, didn't even
wow.
know what a callback was, and went to the callback, and then I found out I booked it, and it was during my week of exams for theater school, and like I could not miss it. Otherwise, I would have been kicked out of the program. And so I had to tell the agent, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I'm in exam week, whatever. And then they came back and they gave me a part in the following episode, which I was then able to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, first of all, that's crazy. But isn't it's also crazy that you're in theater school so that you can end up working? You would have thought like maybe I know it's exams and that's like more heightened, but maybe
Yes.
they could be like, let's just do exams the following week because you've got the work. That's the whole point of yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
okay, but
I have no notes. I agree. But, I also understand in that, it's part of that is one thing I'm super grateful about theater schools. There's a discipline about it that is really important and has stuck with me throughout my career where, and I was part of a program that wasn't just acting, it was also crew work. So I got to
oh,
do behind the scenes stuff too, which was really awesome.
That would have given you a greater understanding of the whole process, because I know I've done very minor acting as well, but people just think you, as an actor, for example, you just get up and do your lines. Obviously, there's more to it, but there's crew, there's so many people involved, there's the camera people, how they set up the shots. Potentially, as an actor, you're not even noticing all of that stuff as well. So it'll give you a greater appreciation, but also probably also expand your skill set because you're seeing everything that's involved and how to work with people. And I know that you're very kind and you introduce yourself to everyone, but I think that's a really crucial skill because if you are aware of everything else, you would be a better actor as well.
Absolutely. And you want to have everyone on your team as an actor. The last thing you want is to have the sound department not like you because, their job is to make you sound good. And if they want to, they can not. And same with lighting and again, I genuinely want to know these people, but I also think it's to your advantage to want to.
Yeah. But not many people think that way. And I'm sure we don't need to give any names, but I'm sure you've seen many people who they just get in, they get out. And, that not necessarily, and that can be okay, but maybe if there's rudeness towards it. And then when you see someone like being the buzzkill, you're like, I'm not going to put in that extra 1% to kind of like help as well. Like it's a very holistic, forward looking mindset.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And also doing it despite the outcome, and not have that expectation, which I'm not going to lie is very challenging.
Yep.
And difficult because I have been in scenarios where I'm working with people and they suck the air right out of the room. Like I'm on set, everyone's having a good time, and then that person shows up and it's like everyone just like disappears. And you're like, wait, what happened? And that's so sad. And I don't understand it, but I'll never understand it. So
that's probably a good thing. And isn't that interesting, the expectation side? Because I've had people that have been in Seinfeld, for example. I know this is sort of what you're saying as well, but then they leave and, it's not Seinfeld, or then there's expectations. Will the show be like Seinfeld? Or, actually, this is a great example. I had this brilliant guy on the podcast, Sam Levine. He was in Inglourious Bastards, and it sounded like he had one of the main roles. He said he had like hours of footage with Brad Pitt, and he was so excited. Long story short, he goes to the opening night, and he's been cut entirely. And yeah, I'm sure that you've heard stories like this. This is an extreme example because he literally is probably one of the number ones on the call sheet. And, that would break your heart. And then you talk about the expectation side. If you're going in to be a superstar, then it's probably not going to fill you up long term. And he had to change kind of his markers of success where he's like, well, I got to be in a Quentin Tarantino film. I got to make great friends. I learned a lot. I grew. I was with Brad Pitt. I may have not, had that much screen time, but these are all the things that I've had. Have you had to make adjustments like that, especially from the expectation side?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think learning about expectations and sometimes recognizing that sometimes you don't think you have expectations, but it's only in hindsight that you recognize that you did have an expectation. Yeah. And that leads, obviously, I have a mentor that says that expectation leads to disappointment, because life is never going to be exactly how you want it to be. But it can be so much more because it's beyond the limitations of what you can see and what you know now. But yeah, I remember doing a pilot years ago where I had a scene and I had a couple lines, and this character would have been a recurring had the show been picked up, but it wasn't. But in the pilot, I only had 2-3 scenes, and this one scene I had two lines. And they, in the moment, in front of everyone, gave my lines to a background actor.
I haven't heard something like that before.
And I was like, and they literally did all this, A, without consulting me, second, without even talking to me in private. It was done fully in public in front of everyone.
Wow.
And I had no idea what was going on because I never experienced something like this before. This was also years ago. So I, still didn't have as much wisdom. And Yeah, and then I literally like went to my trailer and just bawled my eyes out, and I was just devastated. And I remember just being on the phone with my agent at the time and being like, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I doing? And then I had another day of shooting, and they decided that I wasn't going to go in for it. And yeah, it was, and then the show didn't get picked up. So I guess that was my salvation. But
Good riddance. That's so bizarre. Is it just, what do you think it comes down to? Like lack of just not thinking, lack of experience? Because that's obviously more malicious, but there's, yeah.
Yeah, in this particular scenario, it was like too many cooks in the kitchen and everyone trying their best to do their best. And sometimes, this is such a bigger thing, but sometimes in production, there's too many people with too many opinions, and they always think that their opinion matters more, and they're not thinking about anything else except for what they need right now, and pleasing someone else that's maybe higher up or whatever. And sometimes it's forgotten that, actors are human beings. Like, I'm a person who's like trying to do this job, and then that happens, and it's just like, whoa, like you're gutted because how many auditions did you do to get here, and then this happens, and like thankfully that stuff doesn't happen a lot, but still it happens.
I don't have a good example, but it would be like going to a manager and be like, you know what, you're out, and then going to like an intern and being like, you know what, you can do their job while the manager, you just wait on the side. It's so bizarre. Did that experience, because you mentioned you're quite naive starting out, did that kind of like build you up and make you more resilient, or was it just out of mind, out of sight? Because you would have quite a few of these experiences.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a firm believer that every experience makes you grow and makes you learn. And I think that two things can exist. You can feel pain and sadness in the moment, which is what I felt in that moment, and then look back on an experience and not see it as sad, but see it as like it wasn't about me. It was about other things, and it was out of my control, and it also like taught me to advocate for myself, to like stand up for myself, to so I really am someone who looks back on things and always moves forward. I really try in my life, and sometimes to a fault, to not live in that anger and sadness, because that's not bringing anything to me.
No, it only impacts you, and the other person probably doesn't care or have any awareness whatsoever.
They're moving on with their life and they don't even know what they did. And, and meanwhile, I'm like, hey, that thing, and
Yeah. Isn't it funny though, just as a side point, where we can hold on to this anger towards someone, and most of the time, I know this is a blanket statement, they have no idea, or at least even if they have an idea, they have no idea the extent of it. So like the only person being impacted is us, because the other person doesn't care. It's a sad but also cool reality to know who we're going to punish, ourselves.
The number one person we all think about the most is ourselves. So that's one of my acting teachers always said that. She's like, when you leave an audition room, they're maybe thinking about you for like a minute because you just left, and then the new person comes in and they're not thinking about you. And so, they're thinking about their lunch, or they're thinking about they have to go pee and they don't have time. Like, it's just like everything but the fact that maybe you flubbed that one word in that one line, like whatever.
That's really good advice. I want to pigeonhole it. But what you said before about working with people that don't communicate or they're not in high integrity, when I'm writing my scripts, I have like a mission statement that I've written, and it hasn't been made yet. It's very long, but it's people that are in high integrity, that are able to communicate well. And I will not work with anyone. And I know that sounds a bit rich coming from my position, because I had, very long story short, I had a production company in LA, and they offered me a TV developmental deal. And it was a very stressful situation. I think it went on for close to a year, like contract negotiations and all that stuff. And I realized a lot of my values weren't in alignment with their values. And people would go like, I'm so sorry you didn't get the show. And I'm saying, I'm so happy I didn't get the show, because one, imagine how horrible the experience would have been, but it also reinforced, no, these are things that I value. And if you're not, necessarily on the same page, then it's not going to work. You need to be in alignment. You need to be able to communicate. You might not agree with someone, but can we have a relationship when things aren't going great? And that plus 20 things, it wasn't going to work. And I think it's very important to what you were saying as well. And then,
Oh, absolutely. If you don't have integrity and alignment, and if you don't have your core set of values, and by that I mean like those don't change. No matter what's happening around you, those things never change.
Yeah.
And so like when you find yourself in a situation like that, which I have also been in situations like that, where you walk away from opportunities, money, whatever it is, and you're like, sorry, I can't. And people are like, what? And people will be like, no, I signed my soul to the devil a long time ago. And I'll be like, sorry, I can't. Like, I just can't.
I love that because you don't, or you probably do, but people don't understand that not everyone is love and light, especially in this industry. You're smiling. You don't need to name names, but that's a very hard, especially as an actor. You don't know when your next job's going to happen. It's very hard to get a role. You might get one role for every 100 no's. Yeah. And then you get this opportunity, and then you probably, and this is not to go with your agent, I'm just saying in general, you might have agents, managers, whatever, being like, you need to take this, you haven't worked in a while, or it's money, and they're thinking through the money blink. It's very, very, very difficult to say no when you've got an opportunity. And then we can gaslight ourselves and be like, no, they're okay, it's not so bad. So how did you come to that very rare outlook? So tell me all your secrets.
My secret is, honestly, it took me a long time to kind of figure it out, but it's happened with time, like we said, with experience, and through, this is going to sound silly, but I truly like feel my way through everything.
Yes.
My feelings, I've always been a very sensitive person, and I don't mean sensitive like I'm crying all the time, although I do cry quite a bit, but it's that when I feel, and we talked about this ahead of time, it's like when something comes to me, I ask the immediate feeling I feel in that moment is either expansion, like an opening where I'm like excited and like just alive, inspired, which is like being in spirit, like you're connected, you're like in, again, alignment, or you're contracted. And when you're contracted, it feels like weird, and you're like, oh, and then you're like back and forth. But then what happens, and this took me a long time to figure out with the help of some mentors, is the idea of like, when you start to feel confused between the two, it's because your initial feeling that you had, it is actually how you feel. But then your mind got in the way and tried to confuse you as to like, oh, well, it's money, and like, oh, it's a job, and you might never work again, and what if you never make money again? And it has all of these like stories that it doesn't know any better. It's just trying to guide you in the best way that it knows how. But your heart, your intuition always knows best. And I've just gotten into contact with that over time, and it never steers me wrong. Ever. But it's still hard because people pleasing and not wanting just to rock the boat, and not wanting to, rub people the wrong way. That is sometimes the hard part.
We sound very similar. I've also been a level 100 people pleaser, and
yeah.
That can really come into it. But I think what you've said is probably the greatest skill that any human can have. Intuition is our superpower, it can guide us. And as you said, we can kind of let the ego, blind us because we neglect our feelings. And, the stereotypical one is, you're on a date and the guy might be amazing and everyone's like, he's so handsome, he's great on paper, but, something within's not quite right. And then, people honor that, and then you find out maybe it's serial killer. Oh, it just wasn't right for you. But regardless, it's something that we speak about at like sometimes a small level, but we don't really talk about it at a high level. And I've been applying this now because every time I've had an opportunity, I'm like, oh, it's an opportunity, I have to take it. And then I realize that I'm slowly, contracting. And I'm like, But now even with food, not that I apply it, sometimes I want the sugar, I want the treats. But generally as a rule of thumb, when me and my wife are making decisions, we like ask ourselves, are we feeling expanded? Do we have that joy? Do we have that excitement? And that's been an amazing compass. However, that only comes through a lot of learned experience and often making very wrong decisions. You said you've recently come to it. Is this more a general life experience as you're growing and evolving, or have there been maybe situations where you've made inverted commas the wrong decision? You're like, I need to grow and learn from it.
So I genuinely choose not to use the word wrong in my dialogue
Yep.
because that creates like duality, which is, saying that like one thing is better than the other, when in fact we don't know because we're living in the moment that is, it just is. Like what happened is, that's it, period. And like I can put a judgment on the experience by saying it's wrong or it's right, because being right is still a judgment on like, oh, I like this feeling and therefore that's better than this. But the wrongness, or like that, if we're going to use that word, is only bad because we decided it's bad, but we can't see, again, the full bigger picture, which, again, like obviously, like I'm not saying like someone getting murdered is not still bad. We're talking different things here, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, my response is like, I choose to see like, oh, like that was an unfortunate, challenging situation. However, how is this going to guide me, or what am I learning from this experience? And honestly, good things for me can also lead to really great things. But it can also feel bad, like sometimes if I have to stand up for myself, that can be a really positive thing, but it can feel really crappy in the moment, right?
Yeah. I think that's really important. Like, as I said, when everyone was saying to me, oh, I'm so sorry you didn't get your screenplay, I'm like, this was a fantastic experience because, similar to what you're saying, it taught me to be an advocate for myself, it taught me resilience, made me realize, I've actually got something. I'm not going to deal with certain people, reinforced my own values and all of that stuff. Sometimes you don't get those experiences through inverted commas, love and light. Sometimes you have to go through that and then you look back at it and go, wow, I went through that. And it's just like the most wonderful thing. In the moment, horrible, and I wouldn't want to go through it. But that's kind of how it works. And I want to give a great example. You've got many great examples, but you're in this massive show, Heartland. Is it Heartland or Heartland?
Heartland.
Heartland. And you're on it for quite a while. And it's also, as a side point, people still want you to be on the show many years later, which is a huge accomplishment to you. You end up leaving that show and life isn't exactly what you thought it would look like at the moment. Can you tell me what was going on at the moment and how you, I've got a few points on that. Just what was going on after you left the show, because it's very exciting.
Yeah, after I left the show, I was in my like late 20s. And so, in this industry, you're like, okay, like this is my heyday, like I gotta make the most of it. And, kind of like I'm coming off of a show, like I've got experience, I've been doing this for a while, like let's do this. And, I booked some parts here and there, but it certainly didn't manifest itself in a way that I would ideally have enjoyed.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having a part-time job in a restaurant, which, by the way, best experience ever for anyone.
Nice.
And then, having people recognize me when I was working at the restaurant from Heartland. And it was a challenging experience to go from being on that, taking a chance, taking a leap on myself and my career and what I have to offer, and to go into the unknown and like dive deep into what that could look like. And it wasn't always easy. And there were moments where I was like, what am I doing? And then there would be that one thing that would be like, okay, like that's it. And then it wouldn't happen. And it's like, okay, no, there was so much space in between the work. And it was challenging. It was challenging for a couple of years. And at the time I wasn't in a very at the beginning, I wasn't in a very good relationship either, personally. And so I think all of that was like a really important factor, just because I do think your personal life can impact your professional life as
Definitely.
well.
Yeah.
And you as a person, it's all just like, a projection of the insides of you on the outside world. And it was time for me to kind of, really like take time to really like grow and learn and love myself. So Heartland was an incredible experience that afterwards was amazing, but there was so many life lessons after, because I didn't have that like lifeboat, like that thing to kind of lean back on for a long time
It
until
sounds
I
like
did.
growth on steroids, and also tying back to what we said at the start with expectations as well. Everyone I've spoken to, and it doesn't normally go, the way that they think when they've left a big show, and this is the biggest show in Canada, I believe, as well. It's a very big show. But from the expectation side is you leave this show and I'll get these roles, I get all of these roles, and you think straight away you're going to have you're going to be able to pick from all of these scripts, and maybe you had
Yeah.
people tell you this as well, and then it doesn't happen, and then you're left to really question everything. And I'm sure that would have been so overwhelming, because obviously you've done the work and you've grown, and you've had a fantastic career and also personal life as well. But in that moment, you're probably like, what have I done? And that's a very scary place to be, because I don't know what outside help you have as well. But it's, yeah, like, and I think it's amazing that when you, how do I phrase this? That you are able to learn all of those lessons, because sometimes it can be so overwhelming for people where they just quit the industry because they're not willing to, look deep within, or, persevere ahead. Do you look back at this moment and, say, look at the resilience I got, look at the courage I got, look what I learned, look how I learned how to deal with people? How do you see the experience, or at least in that like 2 year period?
Oh yeah, I not often enough, and that's actually one of the things I share, with anyone. I'm like, don't forget how far you've come, because in the present moment, it's so easy to forget like where we were at even just like 6 months ago versus like where we're at now. And it's so easy to get caught up in the feeling of now, but like, what about what was 2 years ago? And when you look back on, I mean, when I look back on like personally where I was at the last time I was on Heartland versus me coming back, I just did one episode in season 18, and who
Ah,
I am today,
cool.
I mean, like literally, I would say like two completely different human beings. Like it's wild.
Isn't that exciting?
It's the most exciting thing ever.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of myself, but like just genuinely like, and like I'm just inspired by people and myself who want to who constantly thrive to be the best version that they can be, to take full accountability for their life, responsibility, own it, and like just go for it, and not live in the kind of like victim mentality, because that's really something that I have actively like unlearned and
Oh.
choose not to have in my life.
And has that come through learned experience and doing all your practices as well? Or was it like a similar situation to this where you're like, well, me being in this headspace isn't going to get me forward?
Yeah, I think it's just like mostly life experience and teachings and like just actively doing the work. And again, it's for some people, it does happen where it's like an aha moment. And I do have one of those aha moments personally.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, my grandmother and my grandfather now are both passed. However, they were like monumental people in my life, my mom's parents, and I found out my grandmother had terminal like lung cancer. This is like, 15 years ago. And that moment like literally shattered my world. And there was something about that moment that I was like, oh, like life isn't forever, and this moment matters, and I'm going to make sure that the moment I have now is of value, and I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm not just sitting in this, and I'm going to do it for her, and I'm going to do it for all the other people in my life.
That's awesome. Especially, my wife had a very similar situation when she was super close with her grandmother, and then that kind of like changed her perspective as well. Super close, thinks about her often as well. But you also, and you don't have to share this if you don't want to, but I think this is life changing. You had a dream about her. I believe that kind of opened or expanded your world further. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I actually went, and so when she was kind of coming to an end with her life experience, and I went and spent a week with her where my mom and I would go see her every single day. And,
nice.
We had some moments where she was more with it, and then some that she was less. And then I was there for a week, and I came back home. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, I found out that, that she'd passed. But before I found out she'd passed, I went to bed one night, and I had a dream that I was in a room, and I just kind of like turned my head, and she was just like standing there.
Whoa.
And I don't remember ever having a dream in this capacity. And she was standing there, and she just looked at me, and she smiled. And it was like the sensation of just like,
Yeah.
it's all good. And she smiled, and then something in my dream kind of took my attention elsewhere. And then I turned around, and she was gone. And then I literally woke up, and I looked, and I always sleep with my phone on airplane mode. And I turned my phone on, and my mom had shared with me that she had passed that night. And it was like, I still have goosebumps when I think about it, because
Same. Yeah.
yeah, it's just, I just really believe in that, and I know it to be true, because I've never experienced anything like that since, except one other time.
Oh, okay.
When my brother got married, my mother and I were both sitting in the audience. My brother was in the front getting married, and there was this most majestic moment where these two birds came out of nowhere. There's no other birds in sight. And fun fact, my grandmother and my grandfather called me and my brother in French, because my mom's French. They called us mes beaux petits oiseaux, which means my beautiful birds. And two birds came out of nowhere, popped in, flew, and sat on a branch. There was one tree behind where my brother and his wife were getting married, and they sat on the branch, and they just looked at us. And in that moment, I was like, is that them? And then my brother and my mom individually, we spoke together, and we all had this same thought in that moment.
Yeah, okay. You can't explain things like this. And, on the dream side, I've had a couple of them as well. And also when animals come to us, we just have this sense of feeling. Some people think we're crazy, and that's fine. But when you have these moments, it changes your entire reality. Everything transforms. Like, the Matrix with the green lines?
Yes.
Like those dreams, you literally, it feels more real than this world. The colors are different. Like, I've seen colors that don't exist on this plane. And I'm just like, how do I explain it? You can't. But it's that feeling. And I think that's what it's like all about. It's, I don't have the words to explain it, but it just changes. It's like flicks the switch, like, holy moly, let's just keep on going. And it helps me with purpose and passion. And even just in the moment, did it transform your life, both of those experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how they can. And I think in those moments, what it does is it reaffirms your faith in the journey of, and that's what those little moments and those little nuggets are. It's just like, hey, keep going. You got this. Like, these moments like are all adding up to like keep you going on this path. And for me, it's like a validation, so to speak.
Yes, I don't have any examples, and I'm sorry. I write them down, but this happened to me quite a few times where, maybe I'm feeling low, or, I want to do something, and then, in your example, like a bird might come and you're like thinking of a bird, or just, oh, I
Yeah.
love it. And as you said, it's really important because it helps realign you back to like where you like should be, if that makes sense. It just,
Yeah.
ignites you. I've got so many questions on this. We'll come back. I want to tie up what you said about Heartland as well, because I've had so many guests talk about this where they've been in a show and then, the show doesn't go ahead, or they think they're going to go a certain way, and then they work another job. I think I had a lady who was won, what are the theatre awards called, or nominated for one, and then she's working as a waitress as well. Or I had another lady who was in Homeland or Neighbours, and she had a big arc as well, and then she's at a wedding serving drinks, and she signed everyone's. We've all had that in the moment. People, and you've spoken about this before, they've spoke about shame, for example. I don't think we need shame, but you just talking about it is very inspiring to a lot of people, because that's not necessarily how life works, especially in this industry. It's not always up and onwards. You're not number 24 on the call sheet and then become number 5 and then you stay at number 1. And you've been number 1 many times, but you've also haven't been number 1. So I'm just wondering, what were kind of the factors? I believe you got a coach, maybe it was a bit later. Did you get a coach? How did the coach help you, and why did you decide to take on a coach?
I've been studying like with coaches, classes, etc. for literally, like, obviously I take time off because I'm working or I just can't commit to that time. But I think the number one thing is so important to stay active in the work, because it's like the way I describe it is like going to the gym. Like, you can't just always lift a 5-pound weight. You got to like lift it up. You got to challenge yourself so that your muscle gets stronger.
Yep.
And it's important. Same with your work. You can't just stay on the same note. And you also need to be challenged through different people, especially if you're on a series for a long time. That can become like, it's the greatest gift, but it also becomes easy. And especially as an actor, you have so many people like doing things for you and complimenting you, and like it's awesome, and like your ego's like, woo, we love it. But it's also like so important to keep grounded and challenged. And a coach, whether it's for my acting, whether it's for my personal life, it's been detrimental to keep me grounded and to just see beyond myself, because I don't have all the answers. And the jobs, they've only made me a better person and a better actor. And I had this awareness while going on a hike with one of my girlfriends who happens to be a coach. She, not my coach, but sometimes my coach. She's like, we were having a chat and we were talking about, the in-between moments between jobs, because, there's so many more in-between moments than there are jobs. And we came up with the idea of training. And training, it not necessarily just being in class, not necessarily just being at the gym, but the training of life. And the training of life is what makes you a better actor for when that job happens. And if you're working like 360 days of the year, you're in a bubble. You're like in a world that is not realistic, and you are not learning and growing and deepening your connection to the human experience. So you're only as good of an actor as you are a good human being. Yep. And you're So the training aspect is so important so I've come to realize, and the part of shame that you're talking about is I used to feel like if I wasn't working and I was going to a party and people were like, so like, Cindy, like, what are you working on? Like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, and I'd like go blank, and I'd be like, I don't know. and I'd be like, oh yeah, like I've been auditioning, and you're just like making up all kinds of stories. And now I'm like, oh yeah, like, I've just been working out, and I have some auditions, and I'm promoting my show, and I'm spending so much great time, quality time with my friends and my family, and I'm cooking nutritious meals, and I'm really enjoying being quiet and connected to myself. And so I'm just ready to receive when the time has come. And people just stand there and they're like, what has she been talking about?
I love that. That's my language. That's brilliant because, as you said, if we define ourselves only as an actor, then, and most people only work a certain amount of, no, most people don't work, but if you are working, it's only a certain amount of time in the year. So you're just leading yourself to, failure or non-success because it doesn't happen all the time. That's a great answer. And also you'll scare the people off that you don't want to talk to as well. So that it invites the right people and then it says goodbye to the other people. Great answer as well.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've got a few. Oh, yeah, with the coach. Sorry. This was a few years ago, but this really caught my eye. I think you found a coach. So I'm just trying to figure out if it was around a similar time. But you said you found a coach that helped you bring back to yourself. That someone, was this, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think it was an acting coach. So it was after, I think this is the story. It was after I did a really big screen test for a big show, which would have been like a blow up your world, like my entire life changes, my career changes, Hollywood #1 on a call sheet, blah, blah, blah. And I was the #1 choice for the creator of the show, the producer, the casting director, and then a famous person's daughter got the role. And I completely shut down. I lost myself in that moment for months. I was attached to the idea that I just wasn't good enough, that I didn't do good enough, all of this stuff. And which is not true. To this day, I think it's still one of the best auditions I've ever done in my entire life.
Nice.
Like I crushed. Like I just did. But anyway, my best friend Sarah told me about this class. This when I was living in Vancouver, and I started taking this class. And there was a weekend intensive. And it was actually Anthony Mendel, who has AMAW, which is an acting class in Los Angeles, and actually has one in Australia too. Oh. And he did a weekend workshop, and I'd been working with Allison Araya, who's since been my coach. But Anthony, it was a weekend intensive, and I was shut down, and he called me out. Like, that's his thing. It's all about, it's similar to Meisner and like listening and answering and being and feeling authentically, even if the script doesn't call for how you're feeling. He wants you to feel whatever it is you're feeling in that moment, because that's your truth. Yep. And I was like Barry, and I'd been doing that for so long, and he was just calling me out on it. And he was like, why are you so shut down? And by the end of the weekend, I was like a nut that had just been cracked. And finally, like, he chiseled at me, and he just cracked it open. And then through the work that I kept doing, like subsequently, like after that, it was just like everything just kind of burst open. Cool. I needed that. And had my friend Sarah not invited me to that weekend intensive and to that class, like, I don't know what would have happened, but it was certainly a life change, like a moment that changed where I was in that time.
And huge credit to you for actually wanting to dive deep as well, and also acknowledging that you did great work. And unfortunately, I can't believe it, you had everyone say yes, and then you get someone's famous daughter. Sad reality, but I believe you would have. This is a quote from yours, and I think this is really inspiring. If something is meant for me, then it won't pass by me. So I assume you came up with that probably around about that time as well, and that would be a great mantra to have to help you in situations like that.
Yeah, I really do think, and I've had opportunities that, I thought were meant for me, and they left, and then literally like 2 months later, they come back around. They're like, yeah, okay, it's you. And you're like, and sometimes it means standing your ground or losing, or like letting something go. And if it's meant to be, like you said, it will come back. And sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not. But you have to be willing to take the chance, because it's so much more beneficial for you.
I love it. I love the journey you've gone on. I love that you've been willing to work on yourself, look deep within, especially during, challenging situations. A lot of people run away or don't want to, dive deep. And I think that's also credit to your career and your life as well, because, just a few examples that you've given, pardon me, to kind of summarize, you could have easily have said, screw the industry, I'll do something out, but you allowed your passion to, to honor your passion and keep moving forward, which could be quite hard to do that. So huge credit to you. Before we go, I just want to tie up, I just want to talk about When Hope Calls. I believe you just had the season finale. It looks like a great show. How are we feeling? How you doing? Tell me about it. I want to know all.
I feel very lucky to have had so many incredible experiences in my career. And this is definitely one of them. This is a show that every single moment, I was living in complete appreciation and expansion the entire time. And I was surrounded by incredible people who wanted to make incredible work and just have a good time. But while also like staying true to the material. And you mentioned earlier about like your calling. And for so long, I do think that acting has been my calling, but what I've also come to recognize is that my true calling is actually while the work is happening with the people I'm working with.
Cool.
It's not about me as much as it's about connecting with them in those moments. And this show was one of those where I was like, oh, I don't want to leave here. This is so amazing. And I was like, I was my brightest light like on that show. And I think that really transpired. And then so I feel grateful. I feel sad. I feel excited for the future. And like, it's just a chapter of my life. And we'll see what the next chapter is. Hopefully it gets picked up. And yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
No, I love hearing this as well, because especially kind of to summarize, our chat. Sometimes when we start as in any field, the markers of success are, I'm going to be number one on the call sheet, or it's going to get 20 seasons, or going to make millions of dollars. But this is crucial, and this is something in alignment with me. You talked about the collaboration and connection with others. Obviously, all the other stuff is great, but what did you actually get from that experience? Because if it's just money and fame, that's not going to fulfill you. That's not going to light you up. And I think that's so important. And I'm sure when you were first starting out, if you were here where you are now, you would just be so happy to hear all of it as well. So it's quite brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, when I think back on why I wanted to do this, I was a little girl who wanted to feel joy and wear costumes and have fun and just feel alive. And that's how I feel when I'm either following following the light
joy,
and where
the passion,
the joy. And in those moments when I'm on set, I am in joy. And in joy is how I'm inspired, and inspired is how I'm aligned, and all of those things feed themselves. And I do think the more you feed into those feelings, the more of that comes your way,
Yes,
because you're no longer,
live and
you're
breathe
no
it, feel it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well said. What we're going to do is a very quick rapid fire segment to wrap up the podcast.
I love it.
Actually, I'll just ask this to type a few things. How did you prepare to ride horses? Did you ride horses on the show?
I didn't ride for When Hope Calls. I learned how to drive a horse and buggy. So I actually had like a lesson for that,
Cool.
which was surprisingly challenging, but I did ride horses in Heartland.
Oh, yes. And how was that?
It was amazing. It was scary and awesome. And yeah, horses are majestic beings and I love them.
I'm not going to comment on them, but that's very cool. I believe you journal, write, and meditate. What has that done for you?
Yeah, what's it done for me? It's given me a practice. It's given me quiet to hear the guide inside of me who, and for me to be connected to myself and to a higher purpose, a higher energy, and and it just gives me clarity when sometimes I feel in that confused state, as we spoke earlier.
Cool. And what brings the best creative content out of you?
Oh, the joy, honestly. Like when I'm in something joyful, I feel creative, and I feel like I just feel like it's just flowing, like that flow state is happening. But the creativity is nature. It's being grounded, and it's being around people that fill my cup and not drain it. So I've also come to realize that I can't be around people who don't fill my cup. I feel like run down. If
We're
you
the
feel run
same.
down after you hang out with someone, don't hang out with them anymore.
Yeah, that's going to be part 2. I understand that. How does it feel to be involved with Hallmark and also being a Hallmark queen?
Wow. I mean, it's felt incredible. I've had some of, the biggest opportunities of my life there. And most importantly, the fans are truly like the most supportive, loving beings who follow you wherever you go. And it's been a nice crossover too between, When Hope Calls and Heartland. It's a lot of like the same kind of audience, which has been truly amazing. And I mean, Heartland Queen, a Hallmark Queen, I feel I feel weird saying that. I certainly am.
Yeah.
I am certainly one of many queens. It is quite the kingdom, and I'm grateful to be a part of it.
We had Taylor Cole on recently, and I saw that we mutuals on Instagram, but she's amazing. Beth Broderick, if you know her, she's also been involved in Hallmark. Everyone speaks so highly of Hallmark, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your YouTube channel and how it feels to put yourself out there?
Yeah, my YouTube channel, I was kind of trying to find a way where I could put out material that was like beyond Instagram, where you have like a 60-second video. And so I just kind of started doing it, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from it. And it's just an opportunity for me to share more of Cindy beyond the work, and while also sharing the work, of course, because I know that's what people love, and the makings and the behind the scenes. But there's so many other aspects of me that people don't really know about, which is also okay, because I do try to keep my life as private as possible. However, I do like to share, like cooking is a massive part of me. I love it. I love cooking for people, and I love nourishment. And so being able to share all that has been really fun, and it's really kind of like a passion project. And if there's like 5 people that like it, then so be it. It's not even to gain like 1 million followers or anything. It's more just like for fun for me. And if people like it, then that's awesome.
And it comes through. I've watched quite a few of the videos as well. Your authenticity radiates. I think it's very great. I'll put in the episode notes, but what's the handle if you know it?
It's the Cindy Busby for YouTube. Yeah.
That's in the episode notes. People check it out. And last question, what would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
Oh, I just would do anything and everything that I wanted to. And I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care what people thought. And again, I don't really, to reiterate what we spoke about, like I don't really believe in failure. I just believe in experience, but I do struggle with judgment. And so if I didn't worry about judgment, I would just say what was on my mind and my heart when I could. And I do typically do that. But I'd probably do more of it in like always like a loving and kind manner. But I wouldn't worry so much about being loved and liked by everyone, because it's really just like I like me and I love me, and that's all that matters.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think embracing all aspects of me and not apologizing for any of it.
That is great. I aspire to do that as well. Before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Cindy_Busby, and on YouTube, the Cindy Busby. I also have a Facebook fan page, and a website, cindybusby.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You are so light and uplifting and empowering and abundant and everything else. Thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Michael. This was such an amazing conversation. I feel like these types of conversations is what lights me up, and what,
thank you.
like, when you're in the flow like this, I'm like, wait, an hour went by? Like, what just happened?
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
I love how Cindy highlights that the training of life is so important, meaning living and being a participant in life and not just purely focusing on your work is crucial to your art form, career, and of course, life. Often we overly self-identify with what we do. Cindy gently encourages us to think a little bit bigger and explains that learning and growing and deepening your connection to the human connection are all tools for a happy and successful life. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. You will never feel truly satisfied by work until you're satisfied by life. Heather Schuck.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.